Have you heard the story about Ronald Reed, the janitor who died in 2014 with $8 million in savings? Yes, you read that correctly. Janitor, $8 million. He also did not win the lottery or inherit any money. He simply saved consistently throughout his life, allowing compounding to work its magic. The moral is that your financial behavior is often more important than your intelligence. Even if you don't have a Harvard diploma or work on Wall Street, you can become wealthy by simply acting responsibly. Financial success is not a hard science, says Morgan Housel. It's a soft skill in which how you behave matters more than what you know. Spend the next 10 to 15 minutes watching this video, and you could become an expert in the soft skill of investing. This is a top 5 takeaway summary of Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. And I'm the Swedish investor, here to bring you the best tips and tools for achieving financial independence through stock market investing. Number 1 takeaway, pay the price. Assume you want a new, nice watch. You go to the store to look at the merchandise. You're looking for something that will impress your friends as well as the lovely lady you're dating. You now have 2 options. Pay for the watch or steal it and flee because you've done your cardio, right? My guess is that you would choose option 1 regardless of your physical ability. You'd take out your card and swipe it. You'd do the right thing. The point is that you are aware that having a new watch comes at a cost, a fee. Investing is no different. It has a cost as well. There are some recurring takeaways for high returns throughout the videos on this channel, one of which is a somewhat concentrated portfolio, with Peter Lynch possibly being the exception. The concentrated portfolio will have an effect on your performance. It will be volatile. This is the cost, or fee, for achieving high long-term returns in the stock market. If you don't have the stomach to stick with it, when your net worth drops by 20% in a single week, as 2 of your major holdings report quarterly earnings that fall short of analyst expectations, don't try to maximize your returns because the higher the returns, the higher the fee. Assume you could see Netflix's bright future even 10 years ago. You put a significant portion of your net worth into the stock. Then you'd be a very wealthy person today. Could you, however, afford the cost of this journey? During this time, Netflix has experienced numerous major downturns. Would you have stayed in that boat in 2011 when Netflix lost a lot of customers? And the stock price dropped by 80% from its peak in the months that followed? Your portfolio's returns would be dismal. What would you say to your spouse and children? Could you face them knowing that you might have jeopardized their future? Do you still believe that being almost entirely invested in Netflix is a good idea? This is, of course, an extreme example, but even if your approach to investing is less extreme than an all-in Netflix strategy, you will have to pay the price of volatility. Assume you purchased an S&P 500 index fund in 1980. You'd still have to wait about 13 years if your investment portfolio fell 20% from its peak, and it was down 50% for about 8 months. That's difficult. Stock market investing is a wonderful thing that allows for the creation of wealth like few other options. But don't kid yourself. It doesn't come cheap. Volatility will affect all investors, and you must accept it as the cost of a brighter future. Takeaway number 2. There is never enough. It's an interesting phenomenon that you can give someone a $2 million bonus, and they'll be fine until they find out the person next to them got $2 million, at which point they'll be sick for the next year. Capitalism excels at 2 things, creating wealth and creating envy. The urge to surpass your neighbors, peers, and friends can help energize your hard work and strive to really make it. And, of course, motivation to become more productive and do meaningful work. Although social comparison is beneficial, it can also make us feel inadequate. Let's take a look at some numbers. To be in the top 1% of income earners in the United States, you'd need to make around $500,000 per year. That's what a highly specialized doctor, let's call him Bill, earns. And by almost any measure, Bill is wealthy. He can afford to drive nice cars, take long vacations to exotic places, perhaps hire someone to do work he finds tedious, and so on. Bill has been thinking about himself and what he has accomplished financially throughout his life. That is, until he bought a vacation home in the Hamptons and discovered he was neighbors with Stan. Stan is in the top 1% of the 1%. He is the CEO of a large publicly traded company and earns a whopping $10 million per year. You'd think that at the very least Stan would be pleased with his financial achievements, but nope. This man was Michael Jordan's childhood friend. And this all-time great basketball player is a member of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And in comparison to Michael's fortune of approximately $2 billion, Stan's yearly salary of $10 million appears to be peanuts. Is this the end of the story? Nope, it doesn't. Because Michael occasionally attends celebrity parties where a man named Jeff Bezos appears. Bezos is among the top 1% of the 1% of the 1%. In 2020, he increased his net worth by about $75 billion, bringing it to around $200 billion. There will always be a bigger fish. Throughout history, the type of envy that has resulted from such comparisons has caused many people to do foolish things. Some have heavily leveraged their portfolios in order to move up the pyramid, just to lose everything and then commit suicide. Some people have acted on insider information and lost both their personal reputation and, later, their freedom when they were imprisoned. Many people have abandoned their families only to have their partners abandon them or cheat on them or both. By watching this channel and learning how to become a successful investor, you will most likely achieve a level of financial freedom that the average Joe can only dream about. But you must accept that enough is enough at some point. We will not exchange something we have and require for something we do not have and do not require, even if we would like to have it. Takeaway number 3. What is crazy depends on who you ask. At first glance, it appears that many people do crazy things with their money. Some people spend ridiculous amounts of money on ridiculous items while others hide it under their mattresses. But keep in mind that everyone comes from a different background and had a different childhood. Different parents, different life experiences, and different educational backgrounds. All of this adds up to different points of view and values. What appears insane to you may make perfect sense to me. Morgan uses lottery tickets as an example in the book. The lowest income households in the United States spend more than $400 per year on lottery tickets. This is 4 times the average in the highest income group. Combine this with the fact that more than a third of Americans are unable to come up with $400 in an emergency. Do these people use their emergency fund to buy lottery tickets? Doesn't that seem insane? However, we do not share the same perspective as individuals. Consider it from their point of view. They live paycheck to paycheck. With little room for savings, they frequently lack education and thus a good career path. They can't afford a nice vacation or a new car, and they can't put their children through college without incurring a mountain of debt. Purchasing a lottery ticket allows them to participate in a dream that many of us already have. Because of this, they purchase more lottery tickets than we do. Maybe I'm not so crazy after all. So how does this help you become a better investor? For one thing, by acknowledging our differences, we become less tempted to replicate an investment portfolio or strategy that does not suit our own objectives. For example, because we are more concerned with getting rich than staying rich, our risk profile may be higher than that of a billionaire. Copying the billionaire's portfolio may be counterproductive to your goals. Recognizing differences can also help us say no more easily to investments that are outside our area of expertise. Take, for example, GameStop. I didn't take part in this drama because I'm not a trader. It's just not my card to play. Understanding different people's perspectives, or at least that there are different lenses through which to view the world, will help you make sense of our society and lead you down the path that is uniquely yours. Takeaway number 4. Peekaboo. What are the Great Depression, World War II, financial crises, and COVID-19 all about? They were all events that shaped our society, had massive effects on the financial markets, and were nearly impossible to predict. These occurrences are referred to as black swans by Nassim Taleb, one of my favorite authors. A black swan is defined as follows. 1. It is an outlier. Nothing that has happened before can convincingly point to the event's possibility. 2. It has a significant impact. 3. It is explained after the fact. Human nature leads us to believe that we should have known it would happen all along. Assume it's Black Monday 1987. How would you have reacted if the market lost nearly 1/4 of its value in a single day? Would you have been one of those who yelled, "Sell, sell"? Or would you have been able to weather the storm, perhaps putting in extra chips that you'd kept on the sidelines? Here's something interesting. If you had invested in the S&P 500 index 20 years ago, but missed the 4 best performing stock market days, your return would have been 164% rather than 291%. That's a significant difference. The moral of the story is that it is better to prepare yourself, both mentally and financially, for an unforeseeable disaster than to hope that you will be able to react before everyone else. Stop listening to macro projections. The things that will frighten the investment community in the future are unlikely to be predicted in the first place. Takeaway number 5, the allure of pessimism. If I gave you a list of reasons why the market will crash later this year, including the massive U.S. governmental debt, the possibility that stimulus payments will lead to the return of inflation, and possibly something about new strains of COVID-19, you would most likely be intrigued, and may end up with a rather negative view of where we are in the market cycle. If I instead showed you how life expectancy is rising, sustainable energy is becoming more affordable, or computing power is exploding, you'd probably just shrug your shoulders and not think twice about it. We all know that the pessimist sounds extremely intelligent, while the optimist appears naive in comparison. Why is this? According to Daniel Kahneman, author of Thinking Fast and Slow, loss asymmetry and listening to pessimists are evolutionary traits. When directly compared or weighted against each other, losses outnumber gains. Organisms that prioritize threats over opportunities have a better chance of survival and reproduction. We tend to pay more attention to pessimists, not only for evolutionary reasons, but also because progress is much slower than setbacks. Progress rarely occurs overnight, but setbacks do. Because tragedies and setbacks occur over much shorter time periods, it is much easier to spin an intriguing and convincing story around them, and thus they receive more attention. We must consider longer time horizons in order to tell an optimistic story about the future. This frequently becomes hazy and less dramatic. Knowing that you will be more fascinated by a pessimist and less fascinated by an optimist will help you become less asymmetric towards it in the future. As Sweden's Hans Rosling would say, the world is better than you think. So, you will not become wealthy in the stock market unless you are willing to pay the price of volatility. Envy is the most dangerous of the 7 deadly sins. Never put what you have and need at risk in exchange for what you don't have and don't need. Different perspectives lead to different reasonable or rational courses of action. Rather than attempting to predict disasters, prepare yourself mentally and financially so that you can survive them. And use caution when seeking investment advice. Recognize that pessimism appeals to your survival instincts more than optimism. That was it for today, but it wasn't the end of Morgan Housel. Check out the book. It's a true treasure. Here's a recommendation for what you should watch next if you want to learn more about human psychology and its relationship to money. Cheers!